what are we going to get into today? Well, let's dive into tests that the home distiller uses, when we use them, how we use them, and why we use them. But first, welcome to Stillworks and Brewing. My name is Randy, and this is a channel that's all about home distillation and brewing. All right. Well, let's get some of the homework out of the way. Hey, this channel is growing, and thanks to all that have subscribed. But there is a few of you out there that hasn't hit that subscribe button, so please do. All right, so now let's get started. Okay, so tests are basically one part of this hobby that, we don't use all these tests, but maybe we should. Maybe we don't have to. It's all up to you. If there's any test out there that I missed, please put them down in the comments so I can add it to this. That would be great. And the way we're going to work is, let's start with there's 5 basic processes in this hobby to make a spirit. So we'll go through each one, and we'll kind of describe the test that goes along with that process. We'll dive into a little bit of detail, but maybe just something to familiarize you with the different tests, and we'll see how it goes from there. All right, so let's get going. Okay, so our first process that we're going to talk about is mashes and washes, okay? And here's what the tests we use. Number one is temperature. There's multiple ways of taking temperatures. This is an instant read. Got a candy glass thermometer. Got infrared. Okay. What do you use it for? Like, say you're making a bourbon and you need to cook your corn. Well, of course you want to cook the corn, I don't know, somewhere between 190 and 200 degrees, and that's to get the starches out. Okay, so that's why you need a thermometer for that. And then once you cook your corn, we got to do starch conversion. All right. So during starch conversion, the first test that you're going to use is a starch test. You want to make sure that you got that starch released from the corn. And I got just a little demo here. But the starch test, how you do that? All right. Well, let me open this up if I can get it open. This here is just plain sugar water. And if you take a drop of iodine, and this is just Iodine Tinter, you get this it's a first aid iodine that you get at the pharmacy or your drugstore or whatever the case may be. So let me do something here first before I do the sugar, all right? All right, so what are you doing? You're trying to get the starch out of the corn. Now here's a potato. Now you know potatoes loaded with starches, right? So let me bring the camera over here so you can see. I see how it's turning black. That means there's starch present. All right, and if you take sugar water, if you've done your starch conversion right and you turned it into sugar water, you put a drop of iodine into it, just kind of goes back to the natural color. See, it just went kind of pretty much back to the natural color. That means that the starch has been converted over to into sugars. And that's what we want. So that's just, the starch turns the iodine black, ink black, and then once the conversion has taken place, and then you put another drop of iodine in the liquid from your mash, it just kind of turns it, it goes back to the original color that the liquid was. Okay, so how do you do the test? Very, very simple. You take a very small, I like a white dish because it's really contrast. So you take a very small sample of the liquid off the top of your mash, put it in there, put a drop of iodine in it, and you'll see the results. If you're still showing black, that means this conversion has not completed all the way. So give it some more time. Take your temperature, make sure it's within range, and recheck in a little bit, okay? All right, so that is the iodine test. And this stuff, it will get on you. Iodine test was time to move on to the next part of your making your mash, okay? So all the starches has been converted over to sugars. Remember, if you're doing a sugar wash or even a rum, this step is not necessary. So anyway, we got our starches converted over to sugars. All right, so whichever way you do your fermentation, if you do a sparge method where you wash the sugars out of the grains into your ferment bucket, or do you put everything into your fermenter? That is up to you. All right, the next test that we will do is pH. All right, now you can have a pH meter like this. Works very, very well. All right, and the pH that we're looking for, and why do we care about pH first? Well, pH is measuring acidity that's in that liquid, and the yeast likes it about 5.4. Most yeast say that's where they like it, so that's where we want to get that. There's different ways. Once we test it, like I said, we're going to test with a pH meter, or they get these pH strips, right? And the pH strip, all you do is you dip it in the liquid, and you got the little chart, and you match up the colors, and it's going to tell you what your pH level is. They work very well too, all right? So, can you change the pH? Well, of course you can. All right, now if I get this straight, baking soda will lower the pH. Right? Am I right or wrong? Ooh, I'm always messed up on that one. Yeah, and citric acid will raise the pH. So if I'm backwards on that, I'm so sorry. So you adjust it with citric acid or baking soda to raise and lower it. All right, so that is your pH test. All right, 5.4 is the standard where most of the time we want pH, and it's up to you whatever you're making. All right. All right. Now the next test that we're going to use is your specific gravity, your starting gravity. This is one of the most important. I've gotten questions before of, let's say, hey, my bubbling has stopped. Is it done or not? Well, the hydrometer will tell you everything, okay? So you want a starting gravity, so you need to write that down, and then that knows where you started. That tells you how much sugar that's in that liquid that's in your fermentation bucket, or whatever you're fermenting in. So that's your starting point. That's what you really need to know. And I can't say it enough how important that number is. And a lot of people, I guess they get excited or whatever, but they forget to get that number, okay? So that is the amount of sugar that is in that liquid. Very, very, very important. All right, so what do you use to test it? Well, old standby is your glass hydrometer. Very good for everything, right? Now, I do use a lot is a refractometer for specific gravity, okay? But once it's in there and they say it starts, I got my starting gravity and it's starting to ferment in a couple days and I'm curious about what's going on, where it's at, this is useless. This ain't no good no more. Once you get alcohol that's in that liquid, these are not reliable at all. Beforehand, yes, they're very reliable. I enjoy them and have very good luck with them. But after alcohol is present, this will not work very well. Okay, so that's the test for mashes and washes. You're in there fermenting. You know exactly what's going on. So we'll go from there. All right. Okay, the next step in this process is fermentation. So what tests do we do? All right, number one is temperature, because temperature is very important for the yeast. In my particular case, I always like to ferment around 76 degrees. All right, so you're going to use a thermometer. You know, whatever you choose, you want to maintain that temperature for your fermentation. Okay, so it's been 7 to 10 days and the bubbling stopped in your bubbler, which this is just an indicator. It's not, it don't do nothing but an indicator, okay? So your bubbling is stopped. Is it done? Is it stuck? Is it done fermenting? What is the case? What's going on? Okay, so the next test that you will use is, I'll drop this hydrometer into the bucket. Take the lid off, I just put it in there. Not this. Nope, that's out of the picture right now. So, it is done. You drop this in there, it is at 1.000. That means that the yeast has ate all the sugar up. There is no sugar left in there, so fermentation is complete. All right. Now, I've had certain, like if you're doing beer and stuff, sometimes there might be a little bit of sugar left, but you're done. But overall, 1000 means it is fermentation is complete. All right. So, one quick question, how much alcohol is in there? All right, one formula that you can use is starting gravity minus the final gravity, right, times 131.25. That's going to equal ABV in that bucket. If it's say I made a 6-gallon mash, it's going to give me the ABV of that 6 gallons. Good info, right? All right, that's good fermentation. Okay, the next is distillation. All right. Well, of course, the very first test that you're going to use is temperature. You're going to use your pot temperature, your head temperature. You're going to feel your column, so you feel when the hot vapors from the pot is starting to work your way up your column. What do you use on temperature? Well, I mean, you got temperature gauges in the pot and you got head temperature gauges in, or you can use your infrared. So whatever case you want to use, but that is just one of, see how black it goes? That is just one of the things you can use. All right, the next thing you're going to need to use is a proof and trails hydrometer. Okay, so you got distillate coming off your still. You got two choices of tools you can use. You got a glass hydrometer, and some sort of test tube. You know, you can fill this up full of distillate, put this in there, and you can see what proof or ABV is actually coming off your still. Very important information, all right? Or, which I use a lot, is a refractometer to measure what is coming out of the spout on the still. Now, these only go to 80% of alcohol, and later on in the process, if you have any sugar that's in the liquid, you know, say you're making a liqueur or something, these don't work. If it's sugar in there, it don't work. But I use these a lot on what's coming right off the still. I find that very useful. All right. Now, okay, so that we're in distillation. All right, the next test, which I don't do, they call it the burn test. If you take some of the alcohol that comes off your still, they say if you light it on fire, it's clear or blue flame, it's ethanol. If it's yellow, it's methanol and some of the other compounds. I don't do that. I just don't think it's that reliable. Anyway, now, next test, you don't need no tools except for one. All right, the smell test. You'd be, if in the beginning of your run and you got stuff coming off and you smell it and it smells like like fingernail polish remover, yeah, I would call that my heads. 4 shots in heads, they're all combined together. So, that's something that you don't want. All right, the next test is a taste test. I'll taste a little bit coming off the still. If it don't taste good, I don't want it, right? I mean, that's very simple, guys. If I don't like it, I don't want it. All right, and the last test for this is a visual test. If something coming off your still and it is not crystal clear, you got a problem. So the visual test, make you watch what you're doing. Again, if it ain't coming off crystal clear, sparkly clear, you got something going on. If you're near the end of your run and it starts getting cloudy, well then you're getting into your tails. But I like to keep an eye on what's coming off the spout. And once it off the spout at 40 ABV or 80 proof, I'm gonna move down to small cut jars, and tails are gonna be starting very soon. That's in my opinion. All right, so that is distillation. All right, a lot of this stuff is going to be, there's an art to distilling. There's a learning curve for distilling, but it is achievable, and with practice you'll even get better, okay? 2 processes. First is blending and proofing. There's not really any tools. Blending and proofing, the only tool that you're really going to use is your proofing trails and or your ABV refractometer. All right, so you're blending it and you want to proof it down, so you're going to measure it. You're going to add nice clean water to get down to the proof that you want. Myself, I like 80 proof. A lot of people like 100 proof. It's strictly up to you. All right. So you will use, for blending and proofing, you will use this. All right. And then along with that, you still use the visual, the smell, and the taste test. Right. So that is blending and proofing. And the last process of this, of making whatever you're making, is aging. And there again, it's a visual test, a smell test, taste test. That's all it is. And that's where the art and the skill, not art and skill, but I would say the art and the experiences will come out. Okay? But don't be afraid of test. And I've said test a million times today, but the money to be able to check these things is not extremely expensive. Hydrometers, the only piece of advice I give about them is own 2 of them, because if you have 2 of them, you won't break one. If you have one, you'll break it. Even refractometers, I think they're in the $20 range somewhere. You can get them on Amazon. pH meters, they're not very expensive. They're less than, right around $20 also. Now temperature, you can, whatever you want to pay. There's many options out there, so it's pretty much whatever you want to pay. But this is from Home Depot, and it's pretty reliable. I've never had no problems with it. Of course, iodine, that little bottle will last for a long time. Now test tubes, this is a plastic one because I got tired of breaking the glass ones. One of these tests is the most important to me. Well, and I'm gonna go back to it again. Your starting gravity. That is the key to if you got everything done or not. And you need to know where you're starting at. So I feel that's the most important. I guess that's about all I got to say about tests. The last thing I got to say is Hey, thanks for coming by, and we'll see you next time here on Stillworks and Brewing. Cheers, everybody. Oh, check that out.